إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا إنه من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن سيدنا ومولانا محمدا عبده ورسوله وصفيه من خلقه وحبيبه صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين ومن تابعهم بالإحسان إلى يوم الدين. قال الله تعالى في القرآن المجيد بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم: يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. وقال الله تعالى: إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك وزد على سيدنا محمد في الأولين وفي الآخرين وفي كل وقت وحين وفي الملأ الأعلى إلى يوم الدين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. أما بعد, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, my dear brothers and sisters. Alhamdulillah, it is humbling and heartwarming to see today in summer break a lot of parents sitting with their kids and young adults that you don't see throughout the year. It's really heartwarming to stand here before you and see so many fathers and sons, and I'm sure there's many mothers and daughters here as well. And we begin by a reminder that many times when the Prophet ﷺ gave a khutbah, he would just recite the ayahs that were just recited. That would sometimes be the only thing he said in the khutbah. And that goes to show the importance of those ayat. And we become numb to hearing them every khatib, every Jum'ah throughout the year. The meaning of them has so much in it that that would suffice us for today if we talked about just that. And the third ayah that was recited is the first ayah of Surah An-Nisa. It's a longer ayah where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us about our origin, that He created us from one, and from one He had man and woman created, and then we have spread as such. But then He has one portion in there. وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ الَّذِي تَسَاءَلُونَ بِهِ وَالْأَرْحَامِ. And be conscious of Allah, be mindful and fearful of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when it comes to the one who you ask things of, meaning we ask things of people, وَالْأَرْحَامِ. And then be mindful of your ties of kinship, your family relations, those who are related to your family, literal blood family, or talking about people who you're related to by blood. And the Arabic is very interesting. When we talk about rahim, rahim linguistically means a womb of a mother. The womb of a mother, meaning where we are all born from. And the connection there is that al-rahim, meaning family and kinship, you are all tied back to one womb, meaning one mother. Whether your cousin, second cousins, at one point in time, there was one mother who carried a child who, from there which you had spread. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks a lot about this, and the Prophet ﷺ sent a lot of messaging around this in particular. Now let's start with one example. When kids were taught about certain things in Islam, we learn how to pray, we learn how, that we fast, we learn about Hajj, so on and so forth. But sometimes it's very important to study the timeline of Islam and how things were revealed, and when did these certain things come down to the Prophet ﷺ. Now many people may not know that prayer was not the first thing that came down. Fasting did not come down early, nor did Hajj. These things did not come down early in the life of the Prophet ﷺ. When he began, when the mission of Islam had taken its form by revelation, Allah Azza wa Jalla had revealed the Quran. The message is very simple. We all know it's about Tawheed, believe in one God. That part we understand. Now what's interesting is what comes right after that. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also, there's Quranic ayahs and there's a hadith. We'll look at a little bit of both. Now there's a story that I think articulates this very well. This is very early in Islam, to the point that there were just maybe even a handful, like literally on your hand you can count how many Muslims there are. A companion by the name of Amr ibn Abasa, he heard about there was a message, and he was one of those people who in his heart, he didn't believe the idolatry. He didn't believe about the paganism, what was going on in Mecca. It didn't settle well with him. He didn't really buy that message, so he always felt like this is wrong. And so he heard that somebody is calling to something else, a new religion, so he went to explore. He had no idea who the Prophet ﷺ, he had no knowledge of this. So he finds the Prophet ﷺ that this is the man. He goes, who are you? He goes, I'm a Nabi. What's a Nabi? He literally didn't even know what that was. He goes, I'm someone who brings a message from Allah. What are you bringing from Allah? He says that you worship no one but God alone, and that you uphold the ties of kinship. That was the second thing he said, uphold the ties of kinship. Story number 2. We all know that when the Muslims had to leave Mecca, when they were being persecuted, one of the places they sent to the King Najashi. They said, go to him, he's a pious, believing king, and he would take care of you. We have Ja'far, one of the companions, the cousin of the Prophet ﷺ. He went to represent the Muslims. The king Najashi said, tell me, what do you bring? What are you talking about? We know a famous story, Surah Maryam and so on and so forth. But he says we were taught to worship one God and to hold ties of kinship. That's a Sahabi. Now let's look at someone who was not a Muslim at the time. Abu Sufyan. He converted much later in the seerah. We're talking like years and years later. He was not Muslim right now. He's talking to the Roman emperor. Roman emperor is curious. Tell me about Islam. What do you know about this religion? What's this whole fuss? There are people who believe in one God and uphold the ties of kinship. That's very important to them. So the importance of family and the importance of kinship is emphasized very early. Again, before prayer was put in a ritual form, before fasting was put in a ritual form, before zakat was put, all of these things came later, but respect of your family came first. Now, the answer that everybody in the room knows. Who in your family is the most important person to take care of? Mom and dad. Everybody knows this. We've done many khutbahs. I've sat here, you've sat here, I've stood here, you've sat there. We've talked about parents many, many times. So I think everybody should know in this room that the most important responsibility that every child and adult, not just children, and adult has in this room is to mom and dad. The most important responsibility. وَوَصَّيْنَا الْإِنسَانَ بِوَالِدَيْهِ إِحْسَانًا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enjoined upon you. وَاعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ وَلَا تُشْرِكُوا بِهِ شَيْئًا. Worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and don't associate anything with Him. وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا. Right after Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, your parents. And then وَبِذِي الْقُرْبَى, and then your family comes after. So when we talk about family, it's always parents first. The number one thing. And we don't have time to go into the details. We've talked about it many times as to the importance, and I'll maybe just say one thing quickly. For those of us in this room who don't have a good relationship with our parents and it's our fault, you're the reason you don't talk to your parents. You were disrespectful to them. You didn't give them the right. Please don't expect good things to happen in your life. I'm being very serious. If you have disrespected your mom and dad without reason, if you are disobeying them and upsetting them without reason, they're not telling you to do something morally wrong. They're just being parents, and you are being that angry teenager or angry adult for that matter. Please don't expect good things to happen in your life. And if good things do happen, then I'm even more scared for you, because that means that you're on another level of heedlessness. If you live a happy life, you live a very ignorantly blissful life of I have a terrible relationship with my parents for no reason, that's good, and great things are happening, then I fear for you severely. That is one relationship that will deem so much of your dunya and your akhirah. Your standing with your parents will deem so much of what you experience in this life and in the next. One of the most severe sins in Islam is to be disobedient and disrespectful to your parents, again, without cause. What I mean by that is if they're not telling you to do something Islamically incorrect, morally incorrect, and you're just being that child to them. And this is not just for teenagers. We have many adults who, mashallah, represent that as well. And so today's topic, my brothers and sisters, is a reality that after many years of working in the community, many years of working with the youth, there's an obvious realization you come to, is that at some point in your life as a young adult, and I'm talking to the younger folks here, you come to this point where there's a little bit of friction at home. There's a little bit of friction. You're butting heads with your parents. It may happen as early as 10 or 11. It may happen as late as 17, 18. Sometimes it happens for the rest of your life in certain instances. And it's very normal, unfortunately, as well. And a lot of times what we do is we say that this is a generational gap. That phrase is so famous, generational gap. They don't get me. Mom and dad are a different generation. I'm of this generation. And that's the common phrase that everybody uses now. And then parents also will now say that generational gap, my kids just we don't see eye to eye. We're just butting heads. And this is one of those things that's a very uncomfortable reality. If you have that thing at home where you go home and you know mom and dad like, oh, I'm just dreading it. I just don't want them to come downstairs right now. And they're going to ask me about this and that. They're upset with me. I annoyed them yesterday. Or your parents, for that matter, are staying up all night freaking out about their kid. Oh, what do we do with this one? I just don't know. What did I do wrong? Very common thing. I've heard so many parents say, what did I do wrong? Where did I go wrong? I did everything I was asked to do. And the kids too. Everything I do is wrong. So obviously what we find here is some sort of a disconnect. Now we'll start with a friendly reminder, first for the parents and then for the children. Actually, let's do that the other way around. Let's talk to the children first for a second. There is something that until you grow older, you will never know this, and you will never realize. And I wish there was a camera that recorded your parents' life, that showed you how many hours and days of their life they spend stressing and worrying about you. Look into your mom and dad's minds for a second. They are consumed by you, consumed. You have consumed their existence. And I mean that every single night before they sleep, who do you think they think about? Every morning when they wake up, who do you think they think about? Every day when they go to work, who do they think about? When they go to work, who are they working for? When they come home, who do they come home to looking for? It's you. You have become the center of their existence, quite literally. Your mom and dad spend so many hours that it's probably more hours than you spend awake in the day, thinking about you, planning about you, stressing about you, caring about you, worrying about you. If you have so much as a cold, your mom can barely sleep at night. But they're not going to always tell you these things. It's a part of treating you to make you feel normal, but they're stressing about it. Look at a mother whose child is ill. Look at a father whose child is ill. Look at the concern in their heart. So the first statement, let's throw this one out the window together, please. Mom and dad don't care about me. Let's throw that one out the window together. We can all agree that mom and dad do care about you. Let's agree on that first, okay? And that's innate with any parent. You can say, I have the worst dad in the world. He's an angry man. He's this, he's that, but they care about you. Let's establish that much. Your mom cares about you, and through care is love. It may not look the way you want it to look. It may not feel the way you want it to feel, but they love you, and they care about you. That's base level number one. The second thing about children, let's switch to the parents, as we said. A lot of parents start saying, my kid says crazy things like, I hate you, mom and dad. They don't want anything to do with me. The minute I come home, it's like they run into the room, they don't want to talk to me. The minute they see me turn off, everything goes south. I can't even ask, how's your day at school, without saying, why are you bothering me? And the parents feel very self-conscious about this. And they're concerned as to what did I do wrong. And oftentimes it's not something that happened then, it's you have to rewind the tape. You have to go back and look at things a little bit further back. The reality is that your kids are dealing with, and I'm not going to use generational gap, but your kids are dealing with a struggle that you may not be aware of. And this is the number one issue that we can underline and circle. Almost every counselor, almost every imam, almost every therapist will tell you it's communication. Something is happening in your kid's life that you're not fully aware of. Summarized, very simply. They're dealing with some issue at school, personal, emotional, physical, mental, whatever it may be, and they have not communicated to you, so therefore there's some friction going on. There's some discussion that's not taking place. And improving communication is truly one of the hardest things to do because we don't always come from a culture where we openly share things to our parents. And I'll give you an example of where communication goes wrong. True story. Child comes, high schooler, tells his mom and dad that, child is very upset. And for a few days, something's off. The mom and dad are worried. What's going on? Kid's not talking to us. He's behaving, weird, fine, going to school and everything, but just not normal with us. Something's going on. Mom and dad are pushing. What's wrong, son? Talk to me. What's going on? Mom will try. What's going on? No response. The kid isn't talking. After like 5 days, the kid's like, okay, let's talk. What happened? Last weekend, I went to my friend's house, and it was kind of like a party. And one of my closest childhood friends, who I've always been friends with, you know him. He's been to our house too. He was drinking, and this was his first time drinking. And I told him, you can't do that. Come on, man. This isn't us. We don't do these things. And we got in a bit of an argument, and I told him that I'm not hanging out with you if you're going to do things like this. And I lost my best friend, and I'm really struggling. I go to school, I see him, it's really awkward. I'm struggling. Mom and dad's reaction, how dare you go to a party without telling me? You told me you were going to his house to study. You went to a party, there was alcohol there? Are you kidding me? Flipped out. The kid has officially shut that wall. You just built a nice wall. It's going to take years to break down. That was the reaction of the parents. The kid opened up with vulnerability, sharing a story that I had to lose a friend. This kid is sad about something, you're mad about another. Communication gap. Now, I'm not saying you as a parent don't have the right to be upset. I'm not saying you as a parent don't have the right to be annoyed and disturbed by the situation. You do, but that's not the time to voice it. That was a vulnerable moment. Your son opened up to you and shared a vulnerability. And they're telling you how they made actually a good decision. They decided that I'm not going to hang out with this person. And if it's true, then your son actually did a good thing and said, I'm not going to hang out with this person for I'm disassociating. And so if anything, you should tell your son that you did the right thing and I'm proud of you for doing that. Then you can go back and talk about you really shouldn't be in those situations in the first place. Or if you know that's going to happen, don't go there. But in that moment when that son opened up and that father drew that, that response, that's when you build walls with your kids. We don't live in that world right now where, unfortunately, not all parents and kids are on the same page in terms of these topics. How many kids can come to you and tell you every problem they're dealing with in school? How many kids can come to you and tell you honestly, Dad, I'm really struggling with pornography? Let's talk about the taboo topics for a second. How many kids can come and tell their dad, that's what I'm struggling with? And what do you think the dad's reactions would be? Because this is a more modern era problem. In the last 20 years, this thing has skyrocketed. right? How many daughters can come home and tell their moms, I'm struggling with dressing like a Muslim? One of the biggest issues, subhanAllah, you'd be amazed. I think the men are oblivious to this sometimes, but for the sisters, I can't even count to you how many dozens of sisters, women, children, young women, in one of the biggest jihads, one of the biggest struggles that they face is dressing modestly in society. Their mothers are like, how dare you wear clothes like this? And the daughters are like, I'm trying my best, but it's not good enough for you. And this struggle, so many moms have had, this is the biggest battle I've ever had with my daughter. And so many daughters say, this is the biggest fight with my mom. That I can't wear what I want to wear, or what I'm wearing isn't good enough. She wants me to wear an abaya all day. These are the types of fights that I deal with. And again, communication, just talking about it, understanding what your child is going through. Mom, when I go to school, people look at me funny. People make fun of me what I'm wearing in gym class, or like nice sweatsuit, this, that, and the third. And these are actual things that they're dealing with. These are actual problems that our kids are going through. And there's a tough reality. And again, I'm still talking to the parents. We're going to go back to the children for after this. A tough reality that parents are going to have to accept is if you're finding that friction in your household, you're likely going to happen to open a can of worms that might be uncomfortable for you to see. You're going to have to open yourself up to hearing things that you don't want to hear. You're going to have to sit with your kid and realize that as a parent, maybe you missed some steps. You missed a few things in the process, and your kid is at step X and you're a few steps behind. And I advise, with the most earnest and humble reminder, to please, please have gentleness in those moments. It's not easy for kids to open up to their parents like this, and it's, subhanAllah, very sad when kids go to counselors and go to their friends and go to other people and not their own parents with their problems. It's not ideal. That's not what we want to see. We want to see parents able to understand their kids' messages, able to listen to them, and of course advise them. That's their job, but with gentleness in those moments of vulnerability. And understanding that these are the different phases to go through. Now we switch back to the children for a second. When we talk about generational gaps in the communication thing, there's this assumption that every teenager happens to have, just by magic, is that my mom and dad are clueless. The world we live in today, the TV we watch, the books we read, the music we listen to, what is the one thing you'll notice in almost every movie you watch? Mom and dad are stupid. Mom and dad are dumb. Mom and dad are clueless. Mom and dad are from a different generation. They have no idea what I'm talking about. Mom and dad are out of touch. They're boring, they're losers, they're this, they're that. Just make the list go on and on. Desecrate parents. Just completely throw them in the dirt and drive them over with a car. Every TV show, every movie, every song. Just why is it such a common thing in Western society that parents are at the bottom of the totem pole? What does Islam teach us? What do we start with? Islam, after Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala comes duty to your parents. After Allah, after your Lord, your Creator, comes the duty to your parents. And this society teaches your parents are losers. And subhanAllah, I remember when I was a kid, probably some of your ages, sitting in this very masjid, one of the imams was talking about how a popular TV show, that's all they do. They desecrate parents. Parents are losers. They're dumb. They're stupid. They don't know what's going on. And these things actually start to come into your head. And they come into your head and you start believing it a little bit, that they really are clueless. But here's a newsflash for everybody who's young and has a parent with them. Your mom and dad went through puberty as well. Your mom and dad went through high school. Your mom and dad grew up as teenagers. Your mom and dad struggled with sins as well. They had their troubles and their difficulties with Islam. They had their difficulties with their parents. Your mom and dad probably at some point in life butt heads with their mom and dad too. Your mom and dad also had normal things that you go through. They had crushes. They had people they liked and friends they didn't like and issues that you go through as well. Just because they're a lot older than you doesn't mean they didn't go through these problems, even if they lived in a different country. They went through their fair share of problems. So it would behoove you to think for a second that maybe I can sit there and say, hey, Dad, talk to me about some of the stuff you went through in high school that was hard. Hey, Mom, what was it like for you growing up as a teenager? Like, did you ever feel weird about wearing certain things your mom gave you to wear? Asking questions like that so you can perhaps learn a little bit from your mom and dad too. They say this thing that like the gray hair comes with wisdom. That's a true saying. And unfortunately, many of us realize that much later in life. And I'm advising you because I was just like you, where I did not look at my parents with the respect they deserve. I still don't. I still don't give them the due right. But you come to realize when you grow older that mom and dad have so much wisdom. They went through so many things in life. They can offer you help. They have help to give you. And there's nobody. You can say many things you want about your parents and your friends. You could say, my best friend, he cares about me more than anybody. This is my ride or die. Till I'm 8 years old, he's going to be my boy. This girl, she's my best friend. She's going to be with me cradle to grave. But you cannot take one thing away from your parents. No one in your life from the day you were born to the day you die, will have loved you more than mom or dad. Not your wife, not your husband, not your son, not your daughter, not your grandparents, not your uncles and aunts and friends. Nobody in your life will ever have that place of number one of love for you. Not even your wife or husband. And that's not to say that makes anyone worse, but there's not possible because you came from them. That is your mom, that is your dad. No one will take that spot from them. And maybe they express love to you in a way that's hard for you to take. Maybe their love comes off abrasive to you. Maybe you see that their love doesn't feel like love to you, but it's love. And it's about you meeting them and them meeting you to understand and communicate that care and that respect for each other. Please remember that. From today to the day you literally until you're an old man with gray hair, no one has loved you more than your mom or dad in this life. And they never will. No one will ever replace them. You will find a million friends in this world, good and bad, and they will come and go in your life like a revolving door. You will find many people to spend this life with, coworkers and friends and even your siblings. But nothing will replace the spot of those two. And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave them that maqam, that status of mom and dad are right after Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. After you worship Allah, you take care of your parents. You respect your parents. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. My brothers and sisters, this is one of those topics that is uncomfortable to listen to, and be honest with you, it's uncomfortable to speak to as well. Because as I said, for those who came a little later, that we talked about one of the realities we see in our households is this friction between parents and children. And this friction where you feel like you're not on the same page. And the result of which is that oftentimes you find parents discovering that their child is engaged in something or doing something at a way later stage. And then you realize, like, wait, that's my son? It can't be. No. It's not possible. That's my daughter? No, it's not possible. The reality is, my brothers and sisters, there's a phrasing, the cake is baked. There comes a time when your son or your daughter has already been set in their ways, and they have personalities, and they have their own habits and everything else that comes with it, dispositions and opinions and so on and so forth. And just because you feel like you're late to it, or perhaps they are not in the state where you'd like them to be, doesn't mean it's not repairable. This is one relationship you always have to go back to because it's tied both ways. You will never, again, I said this in the beginning, and it's such an important message, I will say it again. If you mistreat your parents, if you are disrespectful to them, don't expect happiness in your life. Please don't. When bad things happen, it's expected. It's as if like you cannot go do a major sin and then expect nothing bad will happen to you in life. There are checks and balances in this world. That's a part of being an adult that you realize. The same way if you commit a crime that you have to go to court and deal with the punishment, this is the same thing with Allah. There are checks and balances in life. And so when we talk about this relationship, just a few pointers inshallah to close the khutbah. One of the biggest things I constantly will say over and over again, communication, talking to each other, understanding each other. This goes both ways. You cannot talk one way. It cannot be a one-sided communication. The parents and the kids both have to express this interest. If your child is only ever being asked about school, then I'm sorry, but that's going to end up leading to a lack of communication. When you only ask mom and dad when you need things, the only time you speak to them is if you need something of them, then how do you think that makes them feel? Like, think about it as a friend, right? If you have a friend who only comes to you whenever they need something, aren't you going to say that's kind of a bad friend? Then why do you treat your parents like that? Only when I need something from them, only when I need money, or I need a ride, or I need something XYZ thing, then I go to them. Your parents, and this is something that, again, when you grow up, you realize, but I'm trying to communicate that today, is that your mom and dad deal with their own problems. Your mom and dad have struggles too. Physical struggles as they grow older, emotional struggles as relationships get more tense, spiritual struggles as life gets very busy. So perhaps once in a while it's worthwhile to ask, Mom, Dad, how are you? Mom, Dad, how's your day? Mom, Dad, how's everything going? And perhaps the first couple times they just say everything's fine, everything's good, whatever. But when you keep asking them and show a sense of care about your mom and dad, then it goes a long way. Your parents are going to come to this age and you're going to hit this crossroad very quickly where they are the ones nurturing you and taking care of you, and then the script is flipped. Then you have to take care of them. Allahu alladhi khalaqakum min da'fin. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who created you from something weak. ثُمَّ جَعَلَ مِن بَعْدِ ضَعْفٍ قُوَّةً. And after weakness, He gave you strength. And then after strength, again, He gives you weakness with gray hair. Allah just gives you a nice life cycle in the Quran. Saying that first you were the weak one. Your parents took care of you. Now your parents will go through that phase of weakness. They're going to get a doctor's appointment that wasn't good. And the doctor's going to yell at them and say, you're not taking care of yourself. You're at risk of a heart disease. You're at risk of lung disease, so on and so forth. And then you as a kid have to start taking care of them. Mom, dad, let's go on a walk together. Mom and dad, let's eat healthy, so on and so forth. It goes both ways. And again, from the parents to the kids. The second point, quality time. I think this one is something that you find lacking in almost every relationship where it's strained. Is that all you talk about is school, all you do together is like eating dinner quietly where all you hear is the forks clinging. Quality time is extremely important. And I know this is hard for the parents because we're busy. And maybe later when your kids are older, then it gets hard for them because they're busy. But making quality time doesn't just mean eating dinner tonight, fork clinging. Quality time doesn't just mean I pick them up from school and drop them to activities. Quality time is a concentrated and intentional effort to get to know more about each other by sitting together and being undistracted, putting the phones away both ways. It's not just the kids who are guilty of the phones. That's the truth. It goes both ways. Sitting down and actually investing time to get to know each other, making a plan saying next Friday is for mom and dad and they held it for me and we're going to go do an activity together and find things your parents enjoy and you enjoy and so on and so forth. That goes such a long way. If once a month you put one day for your parents of a quality time hangout, once a month is not much to ask. Once a month you can give your parents one Friday or one Saturday a month. The world will not end. Your friends can wait. Yes, you're going to have FOMO on some plan, but you'll make it happen. And your mom and dad can do the same for you. One day a month. Just concentrated mom and dad time and time for the children. And that you'll see over time goes, don't talk about school, try not to talk about work, talk about other things, your interests, the problems you're going through, the things you're talking about, just communicate, talk to each other. The next thing that's really important, sharing problems and mistakes. And this is one we talked about earlier. I give an example of a son who shared with his dad the issue he had. And those are very important conversations. When your child comes to you and tells you, Mom and Dad, I screwed up. Mom and Dad, I made a mistake. I misstepped. And of course, as a parent, your immediate reaction is, why did you do that? Don't do that. You want to give them advice. But they came to you with the mistake, meaning they know they messed up. Correct? They know they made a mistake. So the prudent thing to do there would be to just ensure that you give them the sympathy. How many times do we tell our kids when they make a mistake, go pray to Allah, go pray to Allah, He will forgive you. He's a forgiving Lord. Rather than the punishment, what do we talk about? The mercy. That Allah tells us that you can sin on and on and on and on again and come back to me and He will forgive you. Go to Allah. Let's pray together. It's okay. Mistakes happen. We have to do tawbah. We have to repent, turn back to Allah. A lot of the problems that we see with our faith in our youth is because they look at our parents and how they practice Islam and they don't like that. And they don't see that as the right version of expression. That religion makes mom and dad more stringent. Religion makes them more, strict and rigid. And everything is haram and I'm not allowed to do anything. Versus teaching them the rahmah and the mercy side of religion as well. It's very important. It's very important for our kids to see that as well. The fourth point, and this is more for the children, respect. Now you can argue and kick your feet all you want that I'm respectful and I don't speak in tones and I don't do this, but the Quran literally sets the bar. What is the bar for us? Uf, which literally means an expression of discontentment. Any expression of discontentment, you've already crossed the bar. Showing your face, turning around, slamming a door. These are all well beyond the line. You've crossed the line already. When you were upset with your parents, you were annoyed. If you want to earn respect of your mom and dad, show them respect first. Very simple formula. When you're upset, you control your emotions. You talk to them calmly. Instead of kicking, screaming, and yelling and responding violently, speak to them calmly. They'll look at you like an adult now. A lot of kids complain that they treat me like I'm 10 years old, but then you stop acting like you're 10 years old, please. That's the reality. The minute you start behaving like an adult, they'll start treating you like an adult. One has to precede the other. Speaking with respect is the number one complaint of almost every parent. Every parent goes, they speak to me in such disrespect. They talk to me like I'm some kid, that I'm not their mom or dad who's spending all day. And again, we talked about culture and how this culture breeds that. This culture breeds us to mess around with our parents and make fun of them and treat them a certain way. And of course, there's jest and there's things that you can do with your family that perhaps is fun. For example, people tickle their parents, whatever. Maybe that wasn't a thing in the past culture, but it's not. You know the line between when your parents are feeling disrespected and when they're not. And the last thing is doing service and gifts for each other. And this is more so for the kids as well, because your mom and dad are constantly, every gift you have in life is from your mom and dad. You don't buy something without mom and dad being the ones who bought it for you. You don't have good things happening in your life without them sponsoring it for you as well. So it would be prudent, again, for you as a kid to sometimes say, you know what, Mom loves it when I clean the house. She's out for 2 hours. Let me just clean the house. Come home, Mom, check out the house. Look what I did. Dad loves it when you take care of your siblings, when you help them out with something like their homework. So you're going to do that just to make Dad happy. These are gifts. Ask any mom and dad in the room. They would love these types of gifts. It's very nice when we go and buy them something, but more than that, they want to see you growing up as an adult. They want success in your life. And that's the greatest gift that they can have. My brothers and sisters, this long reminder, I apologize for the lengthy khutbah. This is one topic that I felt urgent and very important to speak to everyone about. If we really want our lives to be better and we don't want to go home with that uncomfortable feeling of friction with our parents, it's going to take work. It's not going to happen on its own. And the day you move out of your house and leave it broken like that, you're making it even harder. You live at home right now. You see them every single day. Take the first step. Talk to them. Apologize to mom and dad. Tell them you love them. Start the conversation. It doesn't have to be that difficult. It will take effort and work, yes. But the result of that will be that every single day you'll wake up a happier person. You'll have the sukoon, this peace in your heart that I'm in good relations with mom and dad. I can go home and not feel uneasy about it. And it'll be something that you've experienced, and you'll find, as I said, you will not find happiness in life if you're mistreating them. You will find the best happiness in life if you treat them the right way. If you are good to your parents as a son or a daughter, you will find amazing things happening in your life. You'll find success in your studies. You'll find success in your friendships. You'll find success in your personal goals and endeavors. Take that as a step. Understand that it is a form of worship to serve your parents. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive us and to make us children that are good to our parents and uphold their rights. اللهم اهدنا فيمن هديت وعافنا فيمن عافيت وتولنا فيمن توليت وبارك لنا فيما أعطيت وقنا واصرف عنا شر ما قضيت ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين. We ask you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, on this day of Friday, this blessed day, Ya Allah, we ask you to forgive our sins. We ask you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to accept our efforts here that we've come. Ya Allah, we are not good to our parents. Allah, teach us how to be good to them. Allah, we do not uphold the rights of our parents. Teach us how to uphold their rights. We ask you, Allah, for any mistakes we have made to forgive them. We ask you, Allah, for those of us who our parents are no longer here today, Ya Allah, shower upon them mercy today on this day of Friday. Ya Allah, make us a means of goodness for each and every one of them. Allah, if our parents are alive, allow us to uphold their rights. Give us patience when we find lack of it. Give us respect when we are unable to find it. We ask you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to ease the relationships in our households, to strengthen them within one another. We ask you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to teach us the beauty of the sunnah and teach us what this religion has taught us about your deen. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, on this day of Friday, we woke up to the news today that there was another bombing of our brothers and sisters in Palestine. Ya Allah, grant them ease on this day of Jum'ah. Ya Allah, those who were killed, Ya Allah, please forgive them and grant them Jannah. A 5-year-old girl was killed today. Ya Allah, grant her family patience. We ask for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to improve the state of the Muslims. Ibadallah, inna Allah ya'muru bil 'adli wal ihsan wa ita'i dhil qurba wa yanha 'anil fahsha'i wal munkari wal baghi ya'idukum la'allakum tadhakkarun wa aqimis salah.